welcome to the Freedom Train, radio designed to free your mind. I'm here with my guest host, one of my good friends, Mr. Patrick Irvin, the Extraordinary.
What's up? What's up? You can't call me extraordinary with the guests you got with us today, man. I'm just that dude today.
Hey, man, I got to give props to where props due. I am Joseph Ward, your other host, and today we have a very, very special guest. We have Mr. Keith Turner is joining us today on the Freedom Train Radio, and let me give you guys a little background information about Mr. Keith Turner. Originally born in Perry, Florida, he's the son of Coach Chief Samuel Turner and Laverne Jones Turner. Mr. Turner graduated from Florida A&M University in 1991. He's a teacher, an author, a poet. He's always been fascinated by words, stories, and poetry, but began writing in earnest at 19 years old after the untimely death of his beloved father, who was preceded by the death of his mother 6 years earlier. Being the only son of a well-respected coach and World War II veteran, he had a special bond with his father and mentor. Therefore, the second loss at such an early age propelled Keith into pursuing positive means of expressing his feelings and sadness. His prayers were answered at the end of his freshman year at FAMU when he took a course in 1102 English taught by Miss Morgan. She opened him up to a new world of creative writing. Since then, Mr. Turner has been teaching, speaking, and writing poetry, which won him the support and admiration of parents, students, and teachers, and readers and other writers. His writings covers many areas, but it mainly focuses on education and history. He's worked with many students that have dropped out of school or were kicked out of school. He does not know what the words given up on the student means. He refuses to believe you cannot reach a student no matter their history. He believes educators and parents must find out what youth have a passion for. That's half of the battle to him. Once you find the youth's passion, progress is quick, and he also believes you have to have several ways to present any subject matter to a student. There is no one way to teach a student, he believes. He writes from battle-tested experiences in the classroom and community with young people, taking note of the things that work and don't work. Mr. Turner has been published in several print and online publications, including the Tallahassee Capital Outlook and the Atlanta Metro Observer. He has received several awards and certificates for his motivational speaking and spoken word from numerous organizations, including the Florida A&M University Student Government Association, as well as Delta Sigma Theta and other organizations. We present to you guys Mr. Keith Turner. How you doing today, Keith?
I'm doing fine, brother. How y'all brothers doing today?
We doing good. That sounded like one of your On the Shoulder the Giants intros. Is this one of the Giants?
Yeah, I was saying the same thing when he was reading.
Yes, I feel like it. Are you glad to have you here, Mr. Keith? Glad to have you here with us on the Freedom Train Radio.
Well, I'm excited to be here, brothers. I'm very excited to be here, and I like the name, that Freedom Train there.
Oh, yeah, thank you. We want to make sure we uplifting the minds of our listeners and those who are supporting us and, following the footsteps of, paths that you've blazed before us. So,
yes.
That's why we're here.
Yes, sir.
Right. So we're going to jump into this interview and learn a little more about you.
Okay. Well, I'm excited and ready to dig into it, man.
All right. Mr. Irvin.
Go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead and kick it off, Mr. Irvin.
All right. Well, Joe kind of covered some of it in your bio, but I'm going to ask again. When did you realize, like, if you could, when did you realize that the black community needed help? Like, what age were you, or what event might have happened, or, like, when was it that it clicked and you said, you know what, black people need help?
I would say the earliest age when I realized that, I would say around about 4 or 5.
Wow.
My father would always take me with him everywhere. At that age, at 3, 4, 5 years old, and he never really baby talk to me. And when we would go around and we was paying the bills, or he was paying them, and I would go with him. And I guess around about 5 years old, he gave me an envelope one day. When I used to always see him writing bills out at the table. And he said, "Today, son, you gonna pay the bills." He said, "On these envelopes here is the amount that the bills are, and I'm gonna sit in the car and I'm gonna watch you go in there and you go pay the bills." Well, I did that from 5 until I left to go into the military at 18. But to get to your question, my father would drop jewels on me at a young age, like, "Son, stay out of debt. Debt is slavery." He had a few credit accounts around town, and he was always saying he wanted to pay those bills off. And so, little things like that, and just over years of hearing him drop jewels on me about different things like that, I think I would have to go back to 4 or 5 years old. And my father was my hero, and he's my hero now. And I was thinking, like, well, darn, he's the toughest man I know, and things like this are troubling his mind. So I said, I want to get more to the bottom of this. And that was always, I guess that was the earliest that I could say. Him sharing his mind with me at a young age, which made me pretty serious at a young age to try to, understand more what my father was talking about. And as time went on, I started understanding more and more from those continuous talks and seeing him writing out the bills. And he would say things like, "Son, I'm getting this check." He said, "But this check is already spent before I get it." And he said, he said, "See, I'm making this bill out." And he would actually show me, "Okay, this going on the utility, this going on the light bill." And he said, "When I tell you my check is spent before I get it, that's what I mean." So just to get to your question, I would have to say around the earliest is about 4 or 5. And I would say, wow. I was saying, I was at that time I started looking at things like he would look at things to me like actually the Harriet Tubman, and we would look at different documentaries and things like that. And he said, "Well, we came a long ways," but I'm saying, like, "Well, darn, we're not in slavery no more." But to me, it seemed like we're still not free. So my mind started making those connections, and my father was always talking. So just to answer your question, I don't know if I answered it on the head, but that's the furthest I can go back. I'm with it far as I can go.
That's amazing, though, that first the 4 or 5 is amazing, but, even that you had in today's day and age where everybody is so hard on black men, and the common thought nowadays is that there aren't any father figures, and that's because there weren't any father figures for those men growing up. And you can come here and say at 4 or 5, I had talks with my dad, and that was when I realized that we needed help. Like, that's amazing.
Well, check this out, bro. My father was 5 years old, the same age he gave me that envelope. Now, I'm going to tell you a backstory about that, and that's going to tie into what we're talking about now. My grandfather was a legendary, he was a well-known jazz musician, and he played, when the movies were silent, the silent movies, he played the music at the silent movies and stuff doing interviews. Anyway, my grandfather left on a parade float one day, and my father saw him leaving. He thought he was going on the other side of town in Daytona, where you got the beach side, and then you got the Daytona side, the land side. My grandfather go play back in the 30s in those nightclubs over there at the beach side and different clubs around town. But my grandfather actually was leaving to go to California. He saw his father leaving on a parade float one day, and my grandfather was leaving and going to California. So what I'm getting at in saying that is my father saw his father leave out of his life at 5. So he said all his life, if he ever have kids, he's going to be in there. He's going to stay in there. So just on what you said, at that young age, he made up in his mind that he was going to do something different.
Yeah, that's powerful, man.
Very powerful.
Yeah. So
I got another question for you.
Okay.
You know, we asked what age did you find out about, what was going on in the black community and we needed help. So what was the initial thing or the spark that actually made you say, you know what, I'm gonna actually start contributing back to the black community? Like what was that thing that made you want to contribute back to the black community?
The thing that made me want to contribute to the black community was the influence that my father had and my father died when I was at FAMU, but when he died, even before him, I had some powerful mentors, and what I call them is fire spitters. And I actually wrote a poem called Fire Spitters, but from my father and from some other older guys that came, my mentors, and they, what the young people today call, they kept it 100 or they keep it real. They never sugarcoated things, man. It seemed like that was more powerful to me than anything I read in a book or learned in school. And it helped me cut the real from the unreal. It took my mind out of fairy tale land and put my feet solid on the ground. And so I said I wanted to contribute that to as many young people as I can. I wanted to be a fire spitter like the fire spitter spit the truth to me. And so that was always my aim, to be tied up with young people. And the type that I like being tied up with is the one that everybody give up on. Because in many ways I was just like them. If somebody was doing a lot of fluff and a lot of off-the-wall talk and what they call roundabout talk, that always was a turn-off to me, and that was even the way with teachers and things like that. They had to have something that sparked my mind, otherwise I'd drift off, and I would get in a lot of mess too. So, but the ones that kept my attention are the ones that were able to tie points together, use proverbs, tell us stories and backstories. I've always been drawn to words. And so if the teacher or the mentor was able to tell things in a way that would spark my mind and it benefited me, and I wanted to share that with young people. And that's why I have my blog called Jewels for the Mind, because ain't nothing like the jewels that you drop in young people's mind, and just tell them the straight up truth, because this is a crazy world and it's not easy. And so that's what my part wanted to be. I wanted to drop those seeds and try to be make a difference in people's lives, not just young people, but just our people, period. To me, that's more important than money, because if your mind is sharp, that is money, and that's production, that's manufacturing.
Well, you just hit a whole bunch of stuff on the head with that. But let me ask you. I know you said your father was your biggest influence, your biggest inspiration. And you discussed, why you named it Jewels for the Mind. But how long have you been at this? Like, how long have you been putting in work for the black community?
Ever since, I would say ever since I first heard that poetry of the last poets in my 1102 English class at FAMU. It was something in those words that so inspired me, because to give a little backstory on that, I was close to academic. I was on academic probation with a 1.7, and if I would have made that again, I was gonna get kicked out of Florida A&M. And so this teacher here, I think y'all gave it in the intro there. She brought in her big boom box, and she played "Niggas Are Scared of Revolution." Nigga played football, baseball, and basketball. It's by the last chorus. And then she played some Maya Angelou, and she played some Curtis Mayfield. And so I think it was the very next week I went and checked out my first library card. I've never actually had one. I was 18 years old, or 19 at FAMU. And the first book I checked out was Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton, and then the second one was the autobiography of Malcolm X. And from that point on, I was reading like a book a week, sometimes 2 books a week, and I was in the middle of my freshman or sophomore year. And then I started doing community work, volunteering at Urban League, volunteering at different centers around town or in the neighborhood there at FAMU. And so I would have to say there, and then I started doing spoken word and poetry and things like that at FAMU. So I would have to say, once that word started spinning in me, I wanted to spin it in other people. So I would say around 18, and I'm 45 now, and I'm still spinning.
Okay, yeah, you've been at it for a while, man. That's exactly what we need in our community, and that's exactly why we're happy to have you on this call today, to be able to, get your information and your story, be able to pick your brain, and because you're a seasoned veteran in this, not just use this word, you're a seasoned veteran in the game of uplifting black people. Patrick and myself, compared to you, we're newcomers, so we appreciate your time to be able to learn from somebody who's very seasoned in the game of uplifting our black people. So appreciate that. The question I have for you is, because we know it's not easy doing what you do. We know it's not easy being someone doing something that's very unpopular, uplifting black people. So what has been your biggest challenge this far in your quest to enlighten or uplift black people?
The biggest challenge, I would say the biggest challenge is, that's a good question, man. The biggest challenge is, I'm just gonna keep it real. That's what this is about. The biggest challenge, I would say, is I'm just gonna tell it like it is, getting past the gatekeepers.
Okay.
And if you want me to go into that, I'll go into that.
Go ahead.
No, go into that. Go into that.
We need that.
The gatekeepers are, I would say, sometime, raw truth and fairy tale land. Now, I've run into things where, I would say, like where I've worked with after-school centers, I've, even volunteered my time after I get off from work and try to start different programs. And, that's not the easiest thing in the world when you have kids cutting out Santa Claus. I'm mainly talking about working with young guys now, when I'll get to some other situation later, but, cutting out Santa Clauses and Humpty Dumptys and all this kind of stuff. And then, like I was saying, you come in with something that's inspirational, you come in with something that's going to get the young people's attention, and they're used to having them in a certain, I would say, boring thing, where you come in and you have a lot of kids getting kicked out, they're getting expelled from the after-school program, and people are glad you come there because they say, okay, this is the first time we're seeing these kids act like they have some sense. What keep you come here? Okay, well, once I start working with them, and then they start making a change, then sometimes you have, well, most of the time, the people who were just kicking them out or saying you got a bad attitude, now these kids, they're leaders and they actually standing up, raising their hand, coming from the back of the class. And once to raise them up and get them not wild and things like that, sometimes people have a problem. I'm talking about some adults sometimes. They almost want you to put them back in the middle grade.
Right.
And so, and the sadder part about it, sometimes that's in your own neighborhood sometimes. And I ask myself, because I run into this a few times, what is that about? You know, and so I would have to say sometimes the gatekeepers. You know, and you know we definitely see that in the schools. But the hurtingest part is when you sometimes have it in your own neighborhood with your own people.
So you get the kids to a level where they're acting right and participating and being leaders, and then they want you to put them. They want you to send them back to the way they were.
No, or they want you. They say, well, you know, it's like, okay, he made a change now, and now they'd be like, well, they're making a change, but they get too excited about what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, well, what's excited about them loving math? What's excited about them loving to drill? What's excited? I mean, what's the problem with them being excited? Y'all had a problem when they was getting in trouble. Now you got a problem with them being disciplined, and they raising their hand and want to be leaders. I had some people tell me one time, these kids are getting too arrogant.
Wow. Wow. When you educate them, they tell you they're getting too arrogant. Wow.
Yeah.
That is
an issue.
And I thought it was initially in the one place I was in, but I've lived in other cities and I've seen it happen a few times, quite a few times actually. And so to get to what I'm really getting at is that's one of the things that made me come out the school system and made me start saying, okay, it got to be a better way. So, you know, that's what got me into doing this blog, because, and then sometimes I've seen that happen even with parents. You know, sometimes the parents send the kids up there, and then sometimes even the kids will listen to me before they even with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll be like, well, that boy, he listen to you more than he do me. You know, so what I'm getting at is I realize that not only do I have to try to come up with something to enlighten the minds of the young people, I got to put jewels out here even for everybody. And that's one of the reasons for my blog. Is I talked about the situation there in my own community, but it's deeper than that. You know, we got to go back to slavery, we got to go back to Willie Lynch and all this kind of stuff. So at first, it took me back on my feet, but then that's what made me really dig into my own studies. You know, made me go below the surface level and say, okay, now that's just a result of mental slavery of our own people. So I kind of got to go back and go inside of myself and reroute myself in my own history studying and things like that and go deeper. Right. And so, people say, oh, this 2014, that's slavery stuff a long time ago. No, it's carry over into this generation, so we got to cut it at the root.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And with that, I know we're running short, but I still want to ask you one question that I think is very important. If you could speak to Black America, like if you had all of Black America in front of you and you had the mic, what would you say?
What I would say, Well, I'm a spoken word artist, so I guess I would have to tell you through spoken word.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the name of this is called Five Spitters Reach the Youth with Profound Truth. And before I get into that, I would say that we got to put most of our attention in the youth, because the youth is the present and the youth is the future. And so there's no us without them. And we got to take care of our elders. We got to get down our elders' life stories, because our elders' life stories, they show us how to maneuver the minefields in this thing called life. So I would say we need to tighten up on our youth, and we need to tighten up on looking out for our youth and helping them be productive and being able to manufacture, because jobs not falling out of the sky. And we need to go and get down these old people's stories and talk with them and share those stories with our young people and just our people, period. And so I call the older people fire spitters. And the jewels that we need to drop on them, those who serve as mentors, just like in the movie, I don't know if y'all familiar with Kung Fu, where the guy had the old mentor, and whenever he get into a problem, he would think back in his mind when the guy was teaching him when he was a little boy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's the type of relationship we got to have. And so I wrote this poem about all the mentors in my life, and the name of this poem is called Five Spitters Reach the Youth with Profound Truth. And so to answer your question, I would say this spoken word piece. Coming out of high school, nobody broke down the real to me. I traveled the road of a fool, mind like that high from fat, clouded days, premature graves, running from the truth no matter what nobody says. One day I ran into this five spitter. Five spitters spit profound truth. They like the mind of the youth, freedom fighters on the serious, focused minds giving balance to delirious. Who will go down in the pits of hell, fight hard for the youth so minds can swell? Hell, now that ain't deep in the ground. Believe that, your mind ain't well. Hell, your state of mind. Look for a devil with a pitchfork. People gonna lock you up for being crazy. Really, it boils down to being lazy. Sitting on your ass looking up in the sky while we die every day, head full of grape. And we ain't even old. The world cold. It ain't no such thing as sympathy when you poor. Go to the hospital broke, head bust open, they gonna show you the door. Bloody head walking down the street. And the police stop you on his beat. And you tell him love gone bad. Where's the love? Is it a fad? Or maybe just words put out by big money boys? We all these toys. Life, short on joys. Speaking my left ear, speaking my right. Abusing my light. And if I get away from it, I lose sight. So much in this world ain't right. Poverty everywhere. Whole armies move. Rucksack full. Lock and load. Ship, air, a patrol car. Little big money boys, money bar. Pawns in the game, we all are. Jobs hard to get. Minds miseducated. Reality negated. Common sense hated. We rats on cheese run. We shoot somebody else. We shoot somebody in the back with somebody else's gun. When we gonna get on that Harriet Tubman freedom run? That's what I would have to say.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. That's
and y'all catch that. When we gonna get on that Harriet Tubman freedom run? That's that train.
Yes, sir. That's why we had to call you aboard the freedom train.
Yes, sir. When we gonna get on that Harriet Tubman freedom run?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And see, that's why we appreciate your time and your information and your knowledge so much, because that's what this freedom train is about. You know, freeing our minds, uplifting the minds of our youth and our elders and the people of middle age and everyone that we come in contact with, because if we're not reaching back and trying to do our best to uplift our community, then we're not really doing what we're supposed to do on this earth, because we got to uplift each other, because we have to realize others laid down their lives for us to be where we are today.
That's right.
So,
you're right.
Right. Mr. Turner, me and my partner Patrick, we really, really, really appreciate your time. And before you go, can you tell us what your website is again?
My website is www.jewelsforthemind.com, and that 4 is the letter 4 and the letter D. And it's www.jewels, JEWELS, the number 4, the letter D, mind, MIND.com, jewelsforthemind.com.
Okay.
And
Appreciate
it on the top right hand sidebar, you can subscribe to the website by simply putting your email in there. And whenever I make a post, you will get an email. You don't have to come to the blog unless you want to. The blog will come to you.
Okay. We'll appreciate you calling in, Mr. Turner, and enlightening our guests, enlightening our audience on your efforts to uplift the black community and to make things better. Patrick, anything you want to say before we?
Nah, I love the poem. I really did.
Thank you, bro.
We got somebody on the line that might want to say something.
Okay.
So after we go off the air, can you hang back and,
yes,
and see what's up?
Most definitely.
All right. So appreciate
and
you
I appreciate y'all having me on, man. I really, y'all really have a good thing going here, man, and it's definitely needed. And I wish y'all the best of luck, man.
All right, we thank you once again. Like I said, we thank you for your time, for your information, for your knowledge, and thank you for taking the ride on the Freedom Train.
Yes, and I enjoy it too. And I'm gonna tell everybody I know about it.
Yes, sir. We appreciate that. And with that being said, we appreciate everybody who called in and tuned in. And we will catch you all next week, next Wednesday, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, for our next guest on the Freedom Train. And we appreciate everybody calling in, and we'll see you guys next week.
Okay. All right. Y'all take care, brother.
On the Freedom Train.